Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Zdenek's English podcast. And before I play you this episode, I would like to say that my heart goes out to the country of Ukraine, to the Ukrainian people, to all my ex-Ukrainian students, and also to all my ex-Russian students who oppose Vladimir Putin and who have fled the country because of what's happening there. I cannot stand it. I think Vladimir Putin is a threat to democracy, to human life, to the whole world, to our planet, and he has to be stopped. And I'm really pissed off, and I am also really, really sad about this. It actually almost makes me cry, to be honest with you, because the Czech Republic, I'm from the Czech Republic, and the country is not very far from Ukraine. There's just Slovakia between the Czech Republic and Ukraine. And in history, we have had our fair share of experience with the former Soviet Union. Yeah. So there is still trauma in Czech people, in our mentality, in the way we think. There's still trauma. Of course, there's also trauma from the Second World War and anything that happened before that. But you know how every single country has some kind of traumatic experience that you kind of carry with you, and it sort of is passed on from generation to generation, and it remains in your DNA. You could call it a chip on your shoulder maybe as well. You know, that's what we do have in common, actually, with a lot of countries of the Eastern European bloc. Poland, Slovakia, Hungary. I could go on. Yeah, and this is really scary because you should not use violence, weapons. This is unjustifiable. No matter what any Russians say, this is unjustifiable, and Putin should be punished for this. He should absolutely rot in hell. Anyway, that's all I have to say, and of course, I hope you guys enjoy listening to this episode. Let me know what you think. By the way, unfortunately, I have to apologize for the sound quality of this episode. It's not like that throughout the whole episode, and the sound problems mostly happen in part 1, and there is a bit of like cutting out, like my voice cuts out. My guest's voice is fine, but my own voice cuts out. And if you watch the video, which I'm also going to publish on my YouTube channel, the video quality is also bad. This is because I've been having some issues with my upload recently. So I was trying to fix it with my provider. Hopefully it's going to be better now. But unfortunately, this double episode is going to be affected by some sound problems. Yeah, so I hope you guys forgive me. I hope it's still listenable. So one last thing. Gabriel, my today's guest, has his own podcast called the Clark and Miller English Podcast. It's also a website, and you can find Gabriel on social media too. I'm saying it because it wasn't very clear in the episode, unfortunately, because of the sound problems. Right. Don't forget that you can become the Next English Podcast patron and get a mini lesson every single week. In this week's mini lesson, I'm going to go through vocabulary that especially Gabriel uses in this episode. You're listening to Zdenek's English Podcast, a podcast for English learners at B1, B2 and C1 levels. Hello everybody, welcome back to Zdenek's English Podcast, and here is another episode for you, and this time my guest is Gabriel, an English teacher from the UK. Hi Gabriel, how are you doing?
Hey Zdenek, how are you doing, man?
I'm fine, thanks.
Awesome. I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Excellent. So you are living in Bulgaria right now. So what's it like there?
That's true. At the moment, it's like a really nice day. Spring kind of arrived yesterday. Yeah, it's still cool, but it's like sunny, and we got new birds. All these birds came back from Africa, and they're here.
Migrating.
Yes, yes, they're back. They're back for the spring. It's always a good sign when you start hearing new bird sounds. Like that spring's coming, because if the birds
Yeah.
know, then it's definitely going on, right?
I like that myself a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where in the UK are you originally from?
Oh, that's actually quite complicated. But to give you a simple answer, I'm just going to say I'm from Brighton. You're familiar with it because you've been in the
I've
UK
been
a
there.
lot, right?
I've been a few times in Brighton. I like that place a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool.
the pier, the Brighton Pier, and
Brighton Pier,
the
the beach.
arcade, and the
Yeah,
beach, and the seagulls.
yeah.
And then there's obviously as an English teacher teaching English through football. There's obviously a Premier League club, Brighton and Hove Albion.
But
They're doing
they were really low, like they were third division for a long. I don't know much about football, but they were third division for like ever, weren't they? They've recently become Premier League. Am I right?
I think
Or
so.
am I?
When you say
Yeah,
recently, was it five,
maybe
six,
since I was a kid, maybe.
4, 5, 6 years ago or something like that? They got promoted. But to be
Okay.
honest, this year they are doing pretty well. They are a
Are they?
mid-table
Okay.
team, and they give hard time. They often give hard time to top flight
Oh, good. Okay.
teams. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I mean, I don't follow football. I just remember when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, like they were kind of an embarrassment at the city, like because they just sucked. But obviously they've pulled their socks up and now they're doing quite well. That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah, they're very good. The seagulls.
Mhm.
Okay, so Gabriel, you're an English teacher like
Mhm.
myself, so
Mhm.
it's always nice to have a fellow English teacher on the podcast. And not only that, you have your own English podcast, a podcast
Mhm.
for English learners. It's
Yeah.
called the Clark and Miller English Podcast. Did I say
Yes,
that
that is
correctly?
completely correct. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, yeah. The Clark and Miller English podcast. Yeah, we also have a site as well where we have a blog as well. The blog's actually older than the podcast.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's all the same thing, it's all the same package. We do the blog, we do the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what does it mean? Is it two people behind the project,
Yeah,
Clark
yeah.
and Miller?
I know it's such a weird name, right? Because everyone's called like English with blah 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 or blah blah
Yeah.
blah English. And we're like Clark and Miller, and it sounds a bit like a legal firm, right? Like lawyers or
Yeah.
something. Which is good because when people get an email from us, they usually read it. It scares them.
Yeah.
Miller's my partner, so like she's my life partner, but also like the business partner. So we basically run everything together. I'm like the public side, and she's all the other stuff. So I do the content creation and all this sort of talking to people and doing all this stuff, and she does like the website and making sure that everything's like running smoothly. And so it's cool. Like we both work with our strengths, which are very
I love
different,
it.
which is
Yeah,
fortunate. Yeah,
that must be excellent business model. I would
it's
love to
yeah.
have a partner like that.
If you could like split yourself into two and then get one
Yeah.
guy to do one side of things and the other guy to do,
Uh,
that's what it's like for us. Yeah, yeah.
Lovely.
Mhm.
I don't want to be funny or anything. At this point, I should ask you which one is you, but is it even important? I,
Well, I'm Clark. Oh, and yeah. Oh,
yeah,
which one?
I mean,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
for the YouTube video, because we are recording this, listeners, as a YouTube video as well.
Mhm,
So those of
mhm.
you watching this can see at the bottom.
Okay,
You
I
can
thought
see Gabriel's name, but those of you that are listening might not have a clue. So
I am the Clark and Miller. Yeah, yeah. I thought you was wondering whether I'd actually cloned myself and which one of me this one is, and that would be a good question, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't know.
yeah, when you
Yeah,
figure out how to do that, let me know, please. Yeah,
that'll be
I might be
useful. Yeah.
be interested. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I'll let you know. Yeah.
please do.
Save a lot of money and time. Amazing, amazing. It would be really cool if you could just split yourself into two people. I'm trying to think of any downsides. There are probably a few downsides, right? Like
Mhm, mhm.
you'd have to buy more food. Um, you'd probably have to like get an extra room in your house, maybe.
It depends how you will get on with your other self as well.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
because it's does it mean that if it's still you, does it mean that you're comfortable with yourself and that it makes things
Yeah.
easier, or does it mean that it's gonna be even worse?
It'd be really horrible if you got really competitive with yourself. Can you imagine?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Oh, this may not be a good plan.
Exactly. We'll have to think it through.
Yeah.
So, what's your podcast about then? To be
Mhm.
honest with you, for the first time I heard you, it was on Luke's English podcast. I
Mhm.
think you were a guest there in one of Luke's episodes, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was the other way around. I think Luke was on my podcast.
Oh,
Because I
really?
don't think I've done one with Luke yet. Yeah.
Okay then. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I know there's one episode with Luke on your podcast. It's episode 28. I did my
Yeah.
research,
Hey,
and
I
it's
didn't
called
know that.
it's called Talking About Comedy with Luke
Yeah.
from Luke's English podcast. So
Yeah.
so if you haven't been on his podcast, that means that Luke probably shared it in one of his episodes, and he talked about you.
He did
And
mention it, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and then he
Mm.
also most likely put it on his website. So that's how I found you.
Oh,
And
cool.
now you are in my podcasting app as well.
Oh, brilliant. Is it working? Which app do you use? Just so I know.
Podcast Republic. That's the one I use.
Oh, I don't remember putting us on that. I guess we did. So.
It's pretty decent. Yeah, I think it's a
Cool.
decent app.
Okay.
And if my listeners or your why would your listeners need to find you? That doesn't make sense. If my listeners want to find you, basically you can be found anywhere as any normal podcaster. Yeah, Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
I think we're on all of them. Yeah, Spotify and Acast and whatever. Yeah, Stitcher. Yeah. And you can also just go to the website as well. You can find us there, clarkandmiller.com. Everything's there. You can just find everything.
Speaking of the website, I have been thinking of upgrading my own because I made it in Google Sites myself.
Oh, wow.
I'm not a professional designer, so you can imagine. You can.
Wow.
Does it? No, it doesn't. You're just trying to be nice. It's pretty rubbish, and a lot of people told me that it's unprofessional. But I did it myself. So what do you expect? And I'm quite proud of what I did there, but it's not good enough. But when I saw yours, I realized, hang on a minute, that's a good website. I like the design. It's I like how. Is it gonna sound negative if I say simple? No, I mean it in a positive.
Nice.
I mean it in a positive sense. Yeah, like straightforward or very user friendly, and how like it's like you're on the ball with that website, and I like it. You know, I want to get inspired by that. Yeah,
that was more the Miller side of things than the Clark side of things. That's not my area.
Anyway,
but I will pass on the compliments. Yeah.
Well done for meeting your partner and for doing all
it resulted in a great website at least. Yeah,
it's really good. Yeah, I need to buy myself a pattern like that, similar like looking pattern.
Yeah. Well, if you want, it's a WordPress thing. WordPress. All the stuff's there. Yeah.
Lovely. So what's the name of the website again?
Okay, it's Clark and Miller. So Clark like Clark Kent, Miller like the beer, Clark and Miller.
.co.uk or
no .com.
.com.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Clarkandmiller.com. Yeah, easy enough to find. Yeah. And there's a blog. The blogs, we got hundreds of blog posts on like so many different topics as well. So yeah, you'll find something for everyone there. I think if you're an English learner, there's stuff you'll find useful in there.
Nice. Well, that's another thing I wanted to mention. So when I heard you and Luke, whoever's podcast it was, but when I heard you and Luke, and I listened to a few of your episodes, I realized that in some way, and I've already told you this in an email, in some way you remind me of Luke and his way of speaking. I was trying to realize what it was, and I think it's the way you speak, your diction, the way you pronounce words. So it could be the accent. It could also be, I think you are quite well spoken. So you also told me before this episode, you asked me if you could swear on the podcast. I haven't heard any of that yet. So
you may never hear me swear, but I might. You never know. But I mean, basically, I just say that Luke and I are both quite posh. I think it's just down to that.
Would you
I mean,
say that? Would you say? I don't think
not
you're
super
posh.
posh.
Mm,
We're not Eton posh, but we're quite
yeah.
posh, I think.
Yeah.
If if I hang out with some friends in the UK, I kind of sound more posh than a lot of friends there.
Yeah. But doesn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it down to the fact that you are an English teacher and that's just your? You know
It's
what I mean? Like,
possible. Yeah. I think because if I spent a bit of time in the UK, my accent slips a bit as well. But
Mm.
I've got quite a privileged background, and
Okay,
went
then.
to I went to private school for a lot of my education. So I definitely have some posh elements in there somewhere, for sure.
Fair
I
enough.
can't speak for Luke. I don't know about Luke, but
Well, it definitely comes through, and it's. Luke says he's does he say that he comes from the middle class? I think he says he comes from the middle class background. Upper
okay,
middle.
yeah.
He might have said upper middle class because his father is BBC, or what used to be a BBC presenter or something.
Oh yes, I know, because he's on the
But,
podcast
yeah.
sometimes. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
But-
you could call it middle class, upper middle class. Maybe when I say posh, I just mean middle class, because a lot of my friends are kind of working class. So I'm comparing myself to them.
It's all relative, isn't it? Yeah.
It's relative, yeah. And at the end of the day,
it doesn't matter, does it? Yeah, I think it's also the style of the podcast. I think it's still quite similar because I've talked about this here many times. My favorite episodes of Luke's English podcast are those where he sort of like rambles and improvises.
They're good fun, yeah.
I think you've got a fair share of that as well in your podcast. Am I
wish
right?
I could do that though. I can't. I have to plan them. I can't. I
Oh,
tried. I think I
okay.
tried one. I tried one episode with the ramble, but I just felt. I can't.
But Gabriel, it's not like you follow a script. It's just you have got some bullet points and then you.
It's a mix. Yeah, it's somewhere in between a script and bullet points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. It depends what the topic is. Yeah.
It doesn't really seem like that. It really sounds natural to me, like authentic and natural. So I don't know.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think, okay, yeah, I try to do that. I try to have something very organized, but make it sound like it's not organized.
I think it's very important because then you get a lot of podcasts that people, it's just, they're reading it out from a script, which is fine. Some of the podcasts are good as well.
It works for some things,
it's not my cup of tea, basically.
Yeah, and I think when you're doing sort of English language thing, you want to encourage people to be really spontaneous and to speak kind of spontaneously. So it's good to do that yourself and model that behavior.
Exactly. It's easier when you have a guest on the podcast, but you do most of your episodes are solo, right?
Mine are usually solo. Yeah, I got a bunch of interviews, so quite a few interviews, but yeah, most of them are by myself. Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. So listeners, don't forget the Clark and Miller English podcast. Check it out. I think it's really, really good. Right. So
awesome.
I'm sure my listeners are now wondering what's the topic, Zdenek? What's the topic of today's interview?
Oh, I forgot. Sorry to interrupt. We're just starting on YouTube as well. That's all. There you go. We're doing a plug.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I had to drop that.
No worries. No worries. I forgot to mention it. Yeah.
Oh, it's a very small channel at the moment. So yeah, but we are on YouTube as well, Clark and Miller. There you go.
I'm sure it's going to grow. I'm sure it is.
Yes, we'll see. We'll see. I might do something terrible and disastrously lose all the subscribers. Anything could happen. That's the wonder of YouTube. It's so unpredictable, and you could destroy everything in a single motion.
I hope that terrible thing isn't you mentioning that you have appeared on Zdenek's English podcast or something along those lines.
I seriously doubt that would be the case.
Well, you never know. Yeah. So, okay. So like I said, I actually, like I said, my listeners might be wondering what we're going to talk about today. And as I normally do, I asked my guest beforehand what sort of topic he, in this case, would be interested in. And I really like the email I received from you. I'm going to read that paragraph in which you are answering that question. So
do it. I can't remember it at all. So here we go.
You said, I'm into all sorts of stuff, especially music, politics, and of course, language. I'm into hot takes on language and the weirder bits of it, like Greece's maxims,
Mhm.
endonyms, and exonyms. Just wrote
Mhm.
an article on that. And pragmatics in general. And
Mhm.
um, also really into grammar and in all sorts of, sorry,
Mhm.
also really into grammar, but in a sort of abstract way.
Yeah.
So I was like, when I received this email, I was like, "Oh, fantastic! I have a choice there."
There's a lot of stuff there, just no football,
Yeah,
I'm afraid.
that's fine. I have other people I talk to about
Okay,
football,
cool.
so don't worry at all. So music. I have
Mhm.
explored this topic many times here. So if you don't mind, I don't necessarily want to go into
Yeah,
that too deep.
yeah, yeah.
But why don't you just tell us why you included music on the list, just in a few
Oh, just because
sentences?
it's probably my biggest passion outside language, I guess. Yeah. Just always loved music. I just got back from band practice just now. I just
You have a
came in from
band.
band
What's
practice
the
a
name of
week
your
ago.
band?
The
What's
band
the
is
name of
called.
your band?
I'm making notes on one of our logo ideas. Oh, you can't even see it. There you go. It's called Trees. The band's called
Mm.
Trees. Like trees, like
Yeah,
trees.
I like
Yeah.
it. I like it.
Hmm.
Nice. And what genre is it? What music
Oh,
style is it?
never ask a musician what genre it is. They'll
Oh,
just tell
sorry.
you forever. They'll give you a 5-minute reply. I've got this down. Dark folk, and if you like, yeah, dark folk, and if you like Radiohead, you'll like us. There you go. That's
I like the word dark in it. I'm not into folk in particular, but it's
Mhm.
dark. It might be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I,
cool. You
I'm
like dark
into
music? Excellent.
I'm into all sorts of dark stuff. So
Cool. Nice one. Me
yeah,
too. I really value the dark side of art and culture. Yeah.
cool.
Cool.
Well,
I want to ask you now. What's an example of dark music that you like?
uh, I guess not necessarily dark music. Like I'm not
Uh-huh.
into. I don't know what's dark music. Is it like metal, or for me, like
Metal's pretty
that's
dark.
not.
Yeah.
I listen to mostly electronic music, to be
Oh,
honest. But
cool. Okay.
when I say dark stuff, I mean TV shows and
Ah, okay.
films. I prefer dark things. I don't
Do you
like.
like?
Go
Yeah,
on.
yeah. Go on. No, go on. Go on.
No, I'm not particularly into like I like comedy, of course, but
Hmm.
the darker it is, the better. And
Cool.
um,
Are you
yeah,
into David Lynch,
not familiar
the
with David
director?
Lynch.
Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive. These. Okay, the films. He's a film
I'll
director.
have to check. I'll have to check it out. But
Mm.
Ricky Gervais, his
Hmm.
Afterlife, it's pretty good.
I've
And
been recommended that a lot. I haven't seen that
uh,
yet. Okay. Hmm. It's
and
dark. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's like dark, and of course you can imagine Ricky Gervais. There's a lot of comedy in it as well. So yeah,
Hmm.
but it is dark. Yeah,
Cool. Okay.
yeah. So
I gotta check that out sometime. Yeah, yeah.
so you put me on the spot a little bit here with this
Ah,
question.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I really love zombies, for example. Yeah, so I
Hmm.
consider it dark, and the theme of zombie apocalypse and the survival thing. I don't know what it is about it. That it's just
Yeah,
it's my
it's a very popular, like it's very like a common concept. I think people like the idea of being able to like survive by themselves, you know what I mean? Without any sort of societies like destroyed and it's just
yeah
you and your shotgun and your car kind of thing. Like,
yeah
yeah.
exactly. And the Game of
Yeah, there's
Thrones, and I just
uh-huh. Okay.
those kind of stories where you don't know if the main character is going to survive or not. And I just
Hmm.
don't believe in. Am I a cynic? I don't know. In happy endings, like it's boring for me. Okay, it's just boring for me. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Happy endings are often quite boring unless you're not expecting it. Like,
Hmm.
did you
Yeah.
ever watch Black Mirror?
Yes, I like that show a lot. Yeah.
Black Mirror is
Hmm.
fantastic. And then, it was a British thing for a while, but then it became like a British American production when Netflix took over. And then suddenly they started introducing the occasional happy ending. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And it was such a shock to see a happy ending in Black Mirror, but I kind of liked it because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
now when you're watching Black Mirror, you don't know where it's going to go. At least before you could brace yourself for the tragic ending, but now it could be
Exactly.
happy. So you're given a
Exactly.
piece of hope now. And then when it
Yeah.
is a bad ending, it's even more devastating when it comes. Yeah.
I guess I get bored by just endings, or just let's say story twists that I expect to happen,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
that's just too painful. And obviously, there are a lot of cliches in films. I even have a board game behind me somewhere, which
Oh
is
yeah.
called movie cliche,
Oh cool.
movie cliches, yeah, or something.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, I don't know, 200, 300, 400 cards with cliches from movies, and it's just the more unpredictable it is, the better for me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I guess it's hard to write something without falling into a trope, like falling into a standard like story. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no,
But
I
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
I appreciate that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
But I guess it
Yeah.
just fits my personality better. It's just everyone is a little bit different. Yeah. So some
Yeah,
people
yeah.
like romantic comedies. I can never ever get into that. I just can't do
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people like Titanic, and it was one of the worst films ever made. My opinion.
I don't mind
For
like
example.
when it doesn't mean that I have a problem with people, let's say, having a relationship in a TV show or in a film. Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's not the main thing I watch the TV show for.
Mhm.
It's for me, it's okay if something happens between people there, it's fine, like
Mhm.
relationship wise. But when it comes to the genre, it's just when it's just about that, it just bores the hell
Oh,
out of me.
me too. Me too. But yeah, fair enough. Some people like it, and that's fine too, I guess.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, and the next thing on the list is
Mhm.
politics. So immediately I was like, yeah,
Ooh,
we
yeah.
have to do this.
You want to talk about politics? Wow, that's
little
very
a little bit
bold.
little bit about British
Yeah.
politics in particular.
Well,
um
yeah.
I mean, I was prepared because of course, it was 1 week, 2 weeks ago when I reached out to you, and I didn't know you in person. So
Mhm.
I just thought, I just made made a wild guess that you could be interested in politics. Maybe, I don't know
Good
why.
guess.
And
Yeah, good
I
guess.
was right. And I was prepared that you might like Boris Johnson and you might like certain political parties and different ones to mine. So I was like, I don't mind whatever, whoever Gabriel likes, whoever he supports. It doesn't matter. I just want to talk about it anyway.
Mhm.
So what's your take on, what do you make of the current crisis, or shall I call it crisis, scandals surrounding Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister
I could
of
call
the
it a
UK?
crisis. Yeah, no, it's I guess I knew I would swear because I knew we were going to talk about politics. Yeah. It's a fucking shit show.
Mm.
It's a complete
Shit,
fucking
it's a
shit show.
shitstorm. Can you say it's
It's
a
a
shitstorm?
shitstorm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, shitstorm. It's a shit show. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it's no surprise though. Everyone knew from the beginning that this guy has no idea what the hell he's doing, and now it's been proved, and no one's surprised. Yeah.
So so obviously we don't have time for for a thorough analysis, but
Mhm.
what's could you tell us in a few sentences what actually happened? So there's a
So we're
something
talking
to
about yeah. Sorry.
something to do with parties here, but it's we're not
Yeah.
talking political parties. We're talking the actual parties with booze.
Christmas
So what?
parties.
Yeah, Christmas parties. So what happened there, Gabriel?
Okay, so here we go. So like yeah, so during around I think April, May 2020, um when everyone was we all remember that time, right?
Yeah.
April, May 2020, full lockdown, the strictest conditions anyone's ever had, and we all had to like bunker down, and we thought we could get rid of the virus simply by self-isolating and stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone was we all had to sort of make an effort to sort of keep social distance and all that stuff. We all remember it. I'd have to talk about it. It was really difficult time
Absolutely.
for everybody, and we got through
Where
it.
were you
And
living in the UK or in Bulgaria at the
I
time?
was here. I was in Bulgaria. Yeah. Um, yeah. And it recently turned out that Boris Johnson and a lot of the staff at Downing Street, which is, the head office of the prime minister, basically
Yeah.
his office, they were all having parties all the time, including Christmas 2020. They were having some parties. And this was at a time when they the government had told everyone that they weren't allowed to have any parties or meet anyone or even have sex with anyone, because that was actually, it was illegal to have sex with strangers for a while in the United Kingdom, which is completely mad.
But when you say they were not allowed to do that, to do all those things, it was actually a law, right, that they had to follow. And if they didn't, then they would have been punished for it, right?
I guess so. I don't know how much of a law it was. I didn't follow this fully, but like, all I know is that we weren't allowed to, right? No one was allowed to do these things, have a party, snog someone, whatever, like whatever.
You know what? I heard that people got fined actually for doing parties.
There you go. So yeah, there were at least, criminal record, maybe. I don't know if they got a criminal record.
So I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah. But yeah, meanwhile, Boris Johnson and his staff are having all these parties where no one's socially distancing, everyone's drinking too much champagne. And
but nobody knew about that at the time, right?
Nobody knew about that. Nobody knew about that at the time. But in the last, I think it was about a month or so ago, videos and photographs and reports have just started coming out. And this is completely like in the press all the time. Like in the UK, sometimes stuff like this comes out in the press and it disappears after a week or two. There's a kind of unwritten rule in Westminster. Westminster's like the political epicenter of the country. That people who are in the center of politics in the UK, if your scandal is still in the newspapers after 2 weeks, you're finished. If it's there for longer than 2 weeks, it's still there now.
Except if you're Boris, if your name is Boris.
Somehow he hasn't gone yet. Yeah.
You get away with murder if you're Boris.
Yep, looks like it. And one thing that kind of my take on all of this is a very English way to get rid of someone. Like, because if this does see the end of Boris Johnson, it won't be because of the corruption surrounding all the equipment and stuff that was needed for COVID. So when COVID first turned up, there was so much corruption and private hands, money disappearing for all these contracts for like rubber gloves and stuff. They were counting rubber gloves not as sets but as individual items each. All sorts of crazy corrupt stuff was going on around the COVID stuff. That didn't seem to matter. The press were fine with that. The British public were fine with that. Passing laws that give draconian powers to the police and edging further and further towards the police state. The press were fine with that. The public were fine with that. Introducing more laws that I know, like, mess up with workers' wages and putting more people homeless on the streets, and people earning less and less money and not being able to get any support from the government. The press was fine with that. The public was fine with that. But they had a party. They had a party when we weren't allowed to have a party, and that pisses people off.
Turns out it wasn't just a party. It was
a bunch.
A series of parties, right?
Yes, that is true. Yeah. It turns out that they were just partying during COVID. Yeah.
So tell me, why would you even do that? It's just the highest level of hypocrisy. Is it? Would you do that just to show everybody that you can get away with anything and that you are superior to everyone else? Like, in the right frame of mind, if you are Boris Johnson, if you are anyone who has so much responsibility on their shoulders, there is so much at stake. I mean, we are talking literally people's lives, and people's being denied the opportunity or the possibility to visit their loved ones when they were dying, or people couldn't go to funerals, and also all stuff like that, and couldn't have weddings and all sorts of things. So why would you break the very own rules that you decide to implement? Like, I don't understand, like, who in the right frame of mind would do that? Like, it's the highest level of hypocrisy, if you ask me.
I totally agree. Yeah, of course, it's completely hypocritical. I guess it's just entitlement. They don't believe the rules apply to them. I think it's just as simple as that. There's no other explanation. Like, you can see the human, like, emotional side of it. You can say, like, we all wanted to do stuff that we weren't allowed to do during lockdown, and a lot of people did do stuff they weren't supposed to do, because it's just a human urge. If you want to have a bottle of champagne with some friends, you might just try and find a way of doing it. Like, you shouldn't, but a lot of people do. And I think from that point of view, yeah, sure, like from a very simple point of view, it's almost understandable. But like, it's the Prime Minister's office. Like,
But it's,
and
for
it's
me, it's not
hypocritical.
the things that you couldn't, it's not the like, when it comes to, like, I don't know, doing a party or going out with your friends or something, fine, like whatever. But it's those moments where people couldn't visit their loved ones. People fell out with each other because they couldn't see each other. Relationships were destroyed. Old relatives died, and people their families couldn't visit them in the hospitals.
Yeah.
So that's the worst for me. It's like,
Yeah. And that's why everyone's so outraged about this, because so many people had lost a lot of things they couldn't get back because of these rules.
So when you're Boris Johnson, you say it's like the entitlement and all that, but does it also mean that you constantly have to prove this to yourself? Like, is it why they were doing it? Or
wow, like
I don't get it. Like, it literally, how long did they think this lockdown would go on for? How long? How long did they think it would go on for? Not for ages. Like, they might, at the time when they implemented it, they thought maybe a few months and we would be fine, let's say. So how difficult is it to just not have parties for a few months if everyone else has to do it? I don't understand. Like, is it that they had to prove it to themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you're suggesting it may just be more than a simple instinct, but it may also be almost a point of principle that they would do it while everyone else couldn't.
I'm asking the question. I don't know. Like, it's just beyond me. Like, why this?
I totally agree. It's kind of baffling, isn't it? But I don't know. I mean, if you're used to Boris Johnson and his sense of entitlement, then it's almost not surprising. I mean, I wasn't surprised at all when I heard about it. I was like, yeah, of course they did. It's these guys. Like, yeah.
I don't want to.
It's quite depressing, isn't it? Because I should be more outraged, but I'm just like, yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's been going on for a long time. I don't want to bring the B word into this, but it's also related to that. It's connected to that. Brexit,
the Brexit thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, I guess. Hang on, in what way? How would you relate it?
Well, the same person did it,
yeah,
and people believe him, perhaps for wrong reasons. And maybe this is not the podcast to have a go at people who voted Brexit, but we are trying to talk about Boris here, and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the Brexit thing, that's a big conversation, and it's probably quite a difficult one to have for most British people. I've kind of sort of forgotten about it all now, because it's probably a coping strategy for me that I just want to forget about it. Yeah. It's so traumatic, especially as someone living in Europe, and fortunately, I've been living here long enough for it not to be a big problem, like such a big problem. I've got to do more paperwork, and I got to do more stuff now. Now Brexit's happened, but Bulgaria's been quite good to British people here, so I can't complain about that.
Cool, glad to hear that.
Yeah, but for some people, it's been really, really difficult being able to stay where they live. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking of going back, after this COVID crisis subsides.
Oh, back to England.
Yeah.
But cool. Okay.
But now I'm not sure I want to anymore, because it's actually quite complicated for someone like me to get there, because I need a visa, and I need some sort of document from my employer as well, who has to, put me down for a few months as their staff member, and it's not that easy if you're living here. So I don't know if I even want to go through that.
Just because it's lots of extra hassle now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm interested anymore.
Yeah. Also, the country seems to be in a bit of a state of let's find the right word here. Trauma, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it might be quite a stressful place to be at the moment. I haven't lived in England since 2004, so I'm not really the person to ask about this. But just judging by, reports from my family and the general impression I get about life in the UK at the moment, it seems rather tense.
I think the thing is the whole world is tense because of the pandemic, the economic crisis that's going to follow. It's already happening, obviously.
And
in the UK,
change
it's even multiplied by the Brexit element and
Yeah.
all that. So it's quite painful.
Highly divided society. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Great, isn't it?
We're probably not going to solve the political situation here, but it's just
it'd be good.
As you said, you used a really good word. It's baffling. Yeah. So
I preferred your word, shitstorm.
Same thing.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So you said you are into hot takes on language.
Oh.
Do you need more speaking practice? Do you need to work on your fluency, pronunciation, or do you want to expand your active vocabulary? Are your English skills not in balance? For example, your listening is much better than your speaking. Do you need a bit of structure to your learning and a bit of guidance? Do you want to have the option to ask a well-qualified teacher questions regularly? Do you want to be a member of an English learning community of friendly, fun, and highly motivated English learners? Do you want to practice English regularly with international friends and me? Then why not join my brand new Discord group called the Achievers Chamber and take your English to another level? You can find a link in the description of this episode where you can see all the details, all 3 levels of membership, the prices, and instructions on how to join. Suitable for adults, levels B1, B2 and C1. Most events and lessons take place in the evening, Central European Time. Terms and conditions apply.
Thanks a lot for listening. For more information, go to Zdenek's English Podcast Facebook group or visit zdenek'senglishpodcast.podbean.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Zdenek's English Podcast. If you are Zdenek's English Podcast patron, I've got some good news for you. A mini lesson review that focuses on the target language from this episode is arriving right after this. To become Zdenek's English Podcast patron, go to teacherzdenek.com ZEP section and click Become Patron.